Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another solo spooky story. My name's Rob, and today I'll be your host. For anyone that isn't aware, these solo spooky stories, it's a shorter episode, generally about 10 minutes long, where I'll look at a story that is something that I find quite interesting, that I want to talk about, but may not necessarily be, big enough for a large episode between myself and Suze, but still want to talk about it. So that's what the format of these is. Also, there have been quite a lot of people getting in touch with us saying that they actually prefer the shorter episodes, that, it's easier for them to just throw on a 10-minute episode while they're in the car or having a cup of coffee or something. So, we want to be able to give people some kind of variety. So, some people like the shorter episodes, other people prefer the long episodes. So now everyone has a bit of choice. So if you have specific thoughts on the format of them, do let me know. I'd be interested to hear what people think. But overall, the feedback we've gotten is people like the mix. So definitely here to stay for a while longer, I'd imagine. Today's episode is probably the strangest thing I've ever read on the internet, hands down. And I thought it was so bizarre that I actually considered not making this. But then I really just feel like I had a duty to all of you listening to share what I discovered this week and put it out there into the world, because this is genuinely the most bizarre thing I think I've ever come across. It's the strangest cryptid I've ever heard of. And to be honest with you, I'm not even fully certain how I discovered this. It just kind of just appeared effectively. So that in itself is a paranormal experience, I'm sure. But this kind of broke my mind a little bit, and I just wanted to share it with everyone. As you'll have seen from the title of today's episode, we are in fact talking about the bat-winged monkey bird of Britain, which the name alone, I feel like, immediately tells you that this is just mad. There's a lot to unpack just even in the name of this cryptid, and I think that's the eye-catching thing about it, is that it's the bat-winged monkey bird. What a monkey bird is, I'm not aware. I'm still confused after reading about this, but that's what we have. That's what the person who initially saw it described it as, and that's what it's going to forever remain as. I can say with absolute certainty that I have never heard of this before. I like to think that I have a pretty good knowledge of kind of the weird and wonderful world of the paranormal. This is a whole different level. I genuinely have never heard of this. Weirdly, on Reddit, there's quite a few people who seem to know about this, and the comments generally are that I think most people just kind of view it as a bit of a joke, but that they all collectively find it quite funny anyway. So, to get started, to really just hit home how strange this is, from what I can see, there has only ever been one witness to this actual creature, and it took place over a period of 1969 to 2006, which is just mad. And what I discovered about this is that some people actually do take this quite seriously and have done their due diligence and have done their work. And in my research for this, I came across a cryptozoologist named Dr. Carl Schucker, and he has actually done a write-up on this, and that's kind of mostly what I'll be taking from today, is talking about what he's talked about and talking about the direct kind of witness statements that he's taken from the person who's seen these. So he talks about how in October 2007, he was writing a article for a magazine that's called Beyond. It was this British magazine that came out monthly, and I think it dealt with just the paranormal, basically. It's now shut down, but at the time he was writing for it. And in his writing an article for it about lesser known British creatures, a woman emailed him called Jackie Hartley, and she's from Tunbridge Wells in Kent. And she goes on to describe what is genuinely, I think, one of the greatest emails I think I would ever potentially read, and I wish I had received this. So she says, back in 1969, I was 4 years old and travelling back from my auntie's house in London. Dad had been driving for about half an hour and we were going through the countryside. I was in the back of the car when I suddenly heard an awful screeching scream. Mum and Dad were in the front chatting and heard nothing. It was twilight, and as I looked out the back window into the trees, I saw what I could only describe as a monster. It had bat wings, which had unfolded and stretched out before folding back up again, red eyes, and a kind of monster monkey face with a parrot's beak, and was about 3 feet in height. To my 4-year-old's mind, it was terrifying, and I had nightmares for weeks. I did not have a name for this thing in my vocabulary, and so I called it the bat-winged monkey bird, as it seemed to be such a mixture of weird animals. I saw it again late one night when I was 11 from the back window of the car on our way home from Hastings. I think we were travelling through Roberts Bridge, and I saw it for the third time late last year. It was 4:30 in the morning, and I was woken by the same horrible screeching sound, thinking someone was being murdered in the street. I jumped out of bed and ran to the window, catching the tail end of it as it flew past. I knew immediately what it was. The same horrible monster thing I'd seen all those years ago. The bat-winged monkey bird was back. I would be very grateful if you or any of your readers could shed light on this. So, there's a lot to unpack there. So we'll go through it, and you can let me know what you think on this. So in 1969, this 4-year-old girl is sitting in the back of her car, and she says that she hears this awful scream and turns around and sees this creature in the distance in the trees. Curiously, her parents don't hear this, so I don't know if this is like a frequency that only children can hear. Maybe, and it is one of those sobering things that every once in a while I'll do one of those hearing tests, those frequencies that you're supposed to be able to hear, and as you get older you hear them less. I'm already at a point where like there's one or two things that I used to be able to hear a few years ago that I can't now, so maybe it's something like that only children can hear this frequency that the bat-winged monkey bird produces. But for whatever reason her parents didn't see it. So she then goes on to say that when she was 11, which is 7 years after this, that again she saw it at the back window of her car, this time in a different area, but still very similar thing, traveling at night in the back of a car. Which, yeah, there's some consistency there, I suppose, but again, I just find it strange that her parents once again couldn't hear this or see it. So I don't know. It's a bizarre one. Yeah, if we're saying that this is real, again, I think it could be a frequency thing. It's definitely not the fact that she's a child and she just woke up maybe from falling asleep in the car and has seen some things in her kind of waking phase. But then curiously, she fast forwards then from the mid-70s to 2006, where she says she hears the horrible screeching again at 4:30 in the morning, and she's woken up and sees it. Again, this is late at night, early in the morning. She's just woken up. Is there a coincidence here? Most likely. Is it a case that she's just waking up from dreams and is seeing these things? Most likely. But, we'll humor it and say that she is seeing something. So going on from there then, Dr. Shucker talks about how he inquired further and asked for further information for it, and Jackie, she did respond, and she gave not only further kind of background to it and further context to what she'd seen, she also provided a drawing, which I will be sharing as part of the episode. She provided a drawing of what she interpreted as and how she thinks it looks, and it's brilliant. It's phenomenal. I will absolutely share this drawing with you so you can all see the glory that is the bat-winged monkey bird. But Jackie goes on to say, yeah, my most recent sighting was at 4:30 on the 19th of October 2006 outside my bedroom window. I saw the tail end of it fly past after the awful screeching noise woke me up. My address is in Tunbridge Wells in Kent. The time before that I was on my way back from Hastings in Sussex, having just passed through Roberts Bridge, while the first time I saw it we were coming back from London heading towards Kent, and had been travelling for about 20 to 30 minutes. The creature was sitting in a tree in the field off to my right. So that's actually quite a reasonably large geographical area, just to point out. I think it's pretty big actually, so either this creature operates in quite a large area or it's following her, because she's the only person who's reported this, but we'll say that it operates in a pretty large area. She then goes on to say, and this is what I wanted to know about actually reading it, as for my parents, they just laughed and said I must have fallen asleep and had a nightmare. They weren't interested and simply dismissed it, even though I had nightmares about it coming to get me. Although the creature looked solid flesh and blood and made an awful sound, I think it could be paranormal in its origin, as I've never seen or read about anything that even vaguely resembles of it. But if it is real, I would love to know if anyone else has seen it. And as I said, she then provided a drawing with it. So yeah, the Dr. Shucker then kind of, to be fair to him, he went off and researched it and said that he basically couldn't decide if there was any known native species to Britain. It doesn't sound anything remotely like it, and if it is in any way a real creature, it's completely unknown to science or cryptozoology, as he says. He says that, there's maybe one or two creatures from South America that it could be similar to, but that overall he is very uncertain and doesn't want to really speculate. He also notes, though, that the curious thing about Jackie's sightings is that she's seen it over a large geographical area and also over a considerable period of time, which I didn't actually consider. So this is over about a 30-year period, which is quite a large amount of time when you think about it. But as he points out, there's no other eyewitnesses that have ever come forward. So all we're left is the word of this single person who's seen it. And that kind of leaves it there. There was one final thing that I did see online that gave it some sort of like link to something else. And it was when he mentioned South America. And it was a comment on Reddit talking about it, where they said that they discovered a journal entry talking about someone's interaction with evil spirits in Brazil. And the quote starts, "Just as I was closing my eyes, I noticed a wicked-looking black furry creature high above her, descending fast in her direction. I couldn't believe my mind's eye as I watched it attempt to clutch her in its sharp, long-nailed claws, huge monkey eyes popping out while it screamed through a crooked eagle-like beak." That's the only context I have. That's the only quote. But someone says it's to do with some story of spirits in Brazil. So either the bat-winged monkey bird is not at all a real thing. It's the product of child's dreams and, waking nightmares, or it's a spirit that's come from Brazil to haunt this specific girl in her life throughout 30 years in Britain. But yeah, that concludes today's story into the bat-winged monkey bird. I just want to say, I know how ridiculous this sounds, and I'm sure you could hear it in my voice throughout the whole episode. I know what this is. It's a silly, fun story that I wanted to look at. If we want to give it any credence, I'm going to say it's probably a barn owl, and a child's imagination running wild. Most likely it's a nightmare. But, if we want to say that she did see something, we'll say it was a barn owl and probably leave it there. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this just weird story. I loved reading it, to be fair. I know it's so strange and it's really not that spooky, but I adored it. And it's provided me with some fantastic art. There's some really good community art out there. So I'll be sharing a few pictures on Instagram at the very least. And hopefully this, more so than giving you a chill, has maybe just given you a good giggle to start your day or whenever it is that you're listening to this. But if you have your own cryptids that you're aware of that maybe most people don't talk about, reach out to us on Instagram at the SpookyAF Pod. You can send us an email at the SpookyAFpodcast@gmail.com, and you can just let us know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this specific case. I have my own opinions on it, which I think I've made pretty known, but I'd love to hear what you all think about this. And you've just enjoyed this little bite-sized piece of the paranormal, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, everyone.